Alright chaps, it has been a big and bizarre weekend in the Championship so far. Obviously, we've still got a game to come today, this afternoon. There's still City derby between Sheffield Wednesday and Sheffield United, but in today's video, we'll speak about all of the other 11 fixtures that have taken place this weekend so far, and we've got a lot to dive into. Obviously, this is a very busy time in the Championship. It's a 3-game week. We've got a full batch of fixtures coming up in midweek as well. All of those games will be predicted in tomorrow's video, so stay tuned for that. But if you've gone to any matches over the weekend, do leave your thoughts on them down below. Without any further ado, let's jump in. So there's only one place to start out, and that's on Friday night at Deepdale for Preston against Blackburn. Blackburn winning this game 2-1, and ultimately, I've not really got that many complaints as a North End fan. I thought Blackburn were the better side and deserving of all 3 points, and probably the worst we played all season, certainly at home, which is where we've been so strong all year round. Now, coming into this game, both North End and Blackburn knew that neither team was at full strength, and ultimately, it's those injuries that I think have cost Preston a little bit here, but Blackburn also missing some key men, which has to be taken into consideration. What was disappointing was that I felt like Blackburn were gettable. Like, with the injuries they've got to this back line at the moment, there were moments in the game where North End did have a little bit of joy, with Dobbin having that chance early on, Lindsay missing a free header at the back post. But as soon as Blackburn got a bit of a foothold in the game, they never really took their foot off the gas. Midfield especially, I thought Blackburn absolutely bossed it. Tronstad I thought was really good. Morishita we allowed to have way too many touches, and ultimately was just a bit too easy for Blackburn to play through us. You know, Alfie Devine individually was good. Ben Whiteman I thought was fine. But this third midfield spot I thought caused North End all sorts of problems. Not having either Ali McCann or Harrison Armstrong available, I think that's where Blackburn really won this game. The way the goals came about was disappointing as well, conceding from 2 set pieces, the first one being a corner. Really well taken, though, it has to be said. Blackburn's corners and set pieces all throughout the evening I thought were pretty on the money. That's a real asset that they can use going forward. The second one, really disappointing, though, with Jebison losing his man, and it had to be Johnson to score, who North End were tracking all summer. Comes up to haunt us in that aspect. But ultimately, yeah, considering all the injuries Blackburn have got at the moment, really impressive result, that one, and performance. Richly deserved all 3 points. For North End, bit concerned, especially going into midweek where we're going to be without Whiteman because he picked up a yellow card late on, which probably should have been a red card given how bad that tackle was. And away to Watford with how good they've been at home this season. Yeah, I think I'd take a point from that game right now, but North End just have to move on. Blackburn, full credit. Next up, and into the Saturday early kickoffs, we had Bristol City beating Swansea by 3-0, and Swansea suffering with a similar thing to North End, really struggled to defend crosses coming into the box, and Anis Mehmeti was having an absolute field day in this one. Created all 3 of Bristol City's goals, 3 assists in the end, and ultimately it was a richly deserved 3 points for the home side, and just what they were in need of, really. I thought there were signs of promise from this partnership up front for Bristol City as well, with Reece and Sinclair Armstrong. Armstrong still not quite got that final touch, but a little bit unlucky not to score in this game, I thought, and then Reece was pressing quite well off the front. He got his goal as well, which was deserved. For Swansea, though, I mean, the next manager coming in here has got a big task on his hands, because with how competitive it looks down at the bottom of the Championship, Swansea could very easily get dragged into that. I still think there's more than enough quality here where Swansea should be pushing up the table, but as soon as you lose that bit of confidence, you start to concede 2 goals every week. That can get to 3 every now and again like they conceded here. Yeah, confidence can evaporate quickly, so big job the next man's got on his hands there at Swansea, but great performance from Bristol City. But in terms of the performance of the weekend, we've got to give that to Southampton, and I've got to say I did not see this one coming. Southampton obviously came into the last international break with a bit of wind behind their sails with back-to-back wins, but I had this down as the biggest test in the sort of post-Will Still era, and ultimately they made absolute light work of Charlton. The Valley, which has been a tough place to go so far this season, this genuinely looked like a Premier League side playing against a League One, League Two club in the FA Cup. The golfing quality was absolutely huge in this game. For Charlton, I don't know whether it was a case of getting their game plan a little bit wrong or just one too many of their players being off it a little bit. To me, the way quite a few of the goals came about, it just looked like there was a bit of chaos chaos within the whole side where, one defender would press up and two would stay back, and it was those gaps that Southampton really were able to exploit. But some brilliant cut-through play from Southampton in this game, who were in behind Charlton in 2 or 3 passes every single time. And genuinely, this scoreline probably flatters Charlton a little bit with how many chances Southampton crafted. An XG of 4.63, 8 big chances, 23 shots in total. It was an absolute bloodbath, and ultimately I think Southampton probably took their foot off the gas a little bit for that second half, having already scored 5 inside the first half. But Armstrong, brilliant. Finazaz, much more like it from him in this game. Jan took his goal really well from midfield as well. If that's the standard from Southampton going forward, they could very easily get themselves not just back into the top 6 race, dare I say it, could be back in automatic promotion contention, but still early days and a long way to go. That's by far and away the best they played all season, though. And then what a cracker we had playing out between these two. Coventry beating West Brom by 3-2. Now, the real criticism that most of us have had of West Brom so far this season is that in the final third, 1, they've not been clinical enough, but 2, they've not been creating enough chances consistently. Well, in the first half of this game, I thought they looked really threatening, and ultimately, this is something they've not done enough of so far this season. Get the ball out wide and get crosses into the box, either looping balls or cutbacks to Hegebo, because I think he is someone who's got all the natural attributes to be a really effective striker at this level. It's just the service maybe hasn't quite been there so far this season, but put the ball into the box and he will score goals. 2 nice balls in from Mikey Johnson were both converted by him in the first half. Cov get that goal back just before half time, but going in at half time 2-1 up, generally speaking, West Brom have been one of the tighter defensive units in the Championship this season, and generally speaking, I'd still back them to see out this game and get at least a point from it. But the game-changing moment comes early in the second half, and it's just a bit of a brain-dead decision by Malumbi to pull his man back on the halfway line, where there wasn't really that much danger, right in front of the referee when you're already on a yellow card. That ultimately put West Brom right under the caution. Then 2 quick-fire goals from Ellis Sims and Victor Torp got Coventry back in front, and when Cov are leading 3-2 with a man advantage, they were never going to throw that away. So really impressive stuff from Coventry to come back from 2 goals down. Dare I say it, that could be a sign of champions. For West Brom, this just feels like such an opportunity missed, and there is real pressure now, I think, on Ryan Mason. I think West Brom are going into back-to-back home matches after this one. I know they got that win against Oxford just before the international break, but generally speaking, this has been an overarching problem now for West Brom, where their form hasn't been great for a number of weeks now. So yeah, pressure on Mason. You just feel like Malumbi has cost them this game, though. After that, to St Andrews for Birmingham 4, Norwich 1. This is now 3 consecutive home matches that Birmingham have scored 4 goals in, and boy did they put Norwich to the sword. We mentioned it in the preview to this one, but not the ideal sort of match that a new manager probably wanted to come into against a Birmingham side who are playing with loads of confidence right now. And ultimately, obviously, the first few months of the season were a little bit frustrating for Birmingham, where you could tell their forward line wasn't quite clicking, but it was probably always going to take a little bit of time with how many changes they made over the summer, the recruitment, a lot of new fresh faces coming in. But right now, they look like one of the most potent attacks in the league, and ultimately, it was the worst possible start for Norwich in this game, going a goal down after just 3 minutes. Birmingham started like an absolute house on fire all over that back line, and I think that Felipe Clement will realise the scale of the task here. Now, one thing, it's definitely not an excuse, but a contributing factor to Norwich's current form will be this injury list, which is one of the most extensive in the Championship currently. But even the players that are fit, and it's been something that I've heard time and time again with people around the club at Norwich speaking about, is just the players in general not being fit enough, not having that stamina over a full 90 minutes, and Norwich have paid the price for that on way too many occasions so far this season, and going up against a very hardened Birmingham side who have really grown into this season. It was a little bit of a perfect storm in that sense. Norwich can take a bit of solace from this one maybe with Quistgarden taking his goal fairly well, but other than that, it was another pretty bleak afternoon, really. Now, Norwich's next 2, I do think are quite winnable on paper. They've got home games against Oxford and QPR, But with the way they're playing at the moment and the way their home form's gone, I'm not sure I'm that confident in backing them for either of those matches. But huge games nonetheless. For Birmingham, though, full of credit for this one. Great way to bounce back from that defeat just before the international break. And I have to admit, I did not see this one coming. But what a turnaround from Watford, beating Derby 3-2. Derby's fantastic winning streak is now over. But I'm sure a lot of people saw the scoreline in the 54th minute when Derby were 2-0 up and thought that'll probably be job done for them. They'll shut up shop there and that will be that. Watford, the only real criticism we've thrown at them lately has been their away form. Prior to this, they were yet to win away in the Championship. But other than that, their home form's been really good so far this season. This is Watford we're speaking about here. And I think there have been general improvements since Javi Gracia has come back to the club. It was a great way for them to get back into it. The ball whipped in from the right-hand side into Kermegard, who does really well to squeeze the ball in from the angle he gets it in at. And then an unlikely hero, KMB, scoring a brace late on, takes his penalty well, and then a header from a corner. I have to admit, I'm not looking forward to playing Watford in midweek with all the injuries that North End have got at the moment. The way Watford are playing, especially the points they're racking up at home so consistently, they're making a real strong case that they are going to be top 6 contenders at the moment, Watford. For Derby, really poor one to throw it away, having been 2 goals up, but don't want to be too harsh on them because obviously the wider form book still looks positive for Derby, albeit there are maybe still some defensive issues there. Next then to Portman Road for Ipswich playing at a goalless draw with Wrexham. I didn't see this one coming either. I really thought there'd be goals in this game. I think I had it down as a 3-2 Ipswich win, but it was anything but that in the end. Ultimately, Ipswich will be really frustrated by this one. They were the team with all the ball, all the chances. They just couldn't find a way past Wrexham. But full credit to Wrexham. They obviously came up to this game with the intention of settling for a point, and boy, did they frustrate the hell out of Ipswich for this game. Attacking-wise, Wrexham didn't have that much going for them, but you look at their injury list at the moment, especially considering they were without Kiefer Moore, who's been their most potent attacker so far this season. Setting up for a point and being able to go to a place like Ipswich and pick up a clean sheet, I think, if anything, that's to be respected. And this Wrexham side has definitely grown into this season. Defensively, they're a lot tighter. You know, a couple months ago, I don't think this side would have been capable of this sort of result when they were making silly individual errors at the back. But as the weeks have gone on, they've seemed to cut more of them out. For Ipswich, would there be the argument that rotation hasn't helped them so much this season? I think they made 6 changes McKenna made in this game from their win just before the international break against Swansea. Obviously, it's a bit of a double-edged sword because it's such a hectic schedule coming up after this international break. Managers are going to have to manage their squads, but maybe one too many changes for this game and just a bit too much disharmony. But frustrating one for Ipswich. On another day, one of those shots goes in that they have, but full credit to Wrexham and Okonkwo, who was level to everything Ipswich threw at him. Next then to the King Power for Leicester beating Stoke by 2-1. A big result for Leicester this one. It's back-to-back wins, and while I don't think performances have been vintage, let's say, over those last 2 performances, it's 6 points from their last 2. Obviously, the 2-1 win against Norwich just before the international break, another 2-1 triumph for them in this game. And ultimately, I think this was a case of Leicester taking advantage of mistakes Stoke made, really. Quite poor in giving the ball away for both of those goals, but still really well taken. Mavididi with a smashing finish for the first one, and then it was, I think, Fatawu who picked up on the loose ball for the second, playing it through to Daka, who took his goal well. Second half, I think we saw a bit of an improvement from Stoke. Junho getting that goal back for them, and then second half, if either team was going to go on and score another goal, looked more likely that Stoke were going to score their second of the game and level it up than Leicester were to score a third. But holding out for all 3 points is big, and it sets up Leicester's game in midweek against Southampton as quite a big one, really, because both teams have picked up a little bit of form recently. Southampton 3 wins on the bounce, Leicester 2 wins on the bounce. Very much looking forward to watching that one. Stoke, on the other hand, maybe the international break came at a bit of a bad time for them, just a bit of sloppiness in their play, and they'll have been disappointed, particularly with how both goals came about, with them giving the ball away, with players not being under that much pressure. They were just sort of loose passes that were picked up by Leicester. But good win for Leicester there. Stoke, more frustrating more than anything else, I'd say. After that, we had Oxford playing at a 1-1 draw with Middlesbrough, and I did successfully manage to predict this one. I had a few Borough fans in the comments, surprised I wasn't backing them for this game, but Oxford at home can be a tough side to play, a tough nut to crack, and they have taken points off a lot of the top sides at home so far this season. Luke Harris with a nice finish, but ultimately I think this will be a game that Middlesbrough look back on and reflect on and are quite frustrated, really, because they had a hell of a lot of the ball in this game but weren't really able to translate that into consistent chances. 70% possession, they had 19 shots in this game, but ultimately only 3 of them were on target. Morgan Whittaker took his goal quite well early in the second half as well, and at that point you're thinking Borough are going to have the momentum to go on and win this game, but just didn't quite fall for them, and I do think that's a better point for Oxford probably than it is Middlesbrough. Oxford, quite important they got something from this game coming off the back of back-to-back defeats, I think it was before the international break as well. Borough just not quite getting the rub of the green in this one. Like I say, they had a penalty appeal which was waved away, and then just not enough quality in the final third to probably go on and win this one despite all the possession they had. After that, to Fratton Park, we had Portsmouth beating Millwall 3-1, and this was much more like it from John Mousinho's side. Goals have been in quite short supply for Pompey so far this season, but 3 in this one, and particularly the finishes from Swanson and Williams, were absolutely cracking. But a richly deserved 3 points, it has to be said. Getting Callum Lang back in action, I think is absolutely massive for Portsmouth going forward. I think he's been someone who they've really missed so far this season, not just for the quality he brings on the ball and the goal threat, but off the ball as well, how much energy he gives you, and that's something that I think Pompey have really been lacking. For Millwall, I mean, I've sort of gathered this with a lot of championship sides at the moment, that it's really tough to get a reading on them. Injuries have obviously played their part in this one. Cooper being suspended was obviously a big one that made them weaker at the back as well, which has to be taken into consideration. But trying to get a read on a lot of championship clubs at the moment, with how many players are out injured and how many games are going to come in this quite short schedule where managers are going to be rotating a lot, it makes predictions pretty much impossible to do. And for a side like Millwall at the moment, you don't quite know which side is going to show up week to week. But full of praise for Pompey for this one. That's the sort of performance they consistently produce at home last season, and that's been in sort of short supply this time around. But more of that, and I think they'll be absolutely fine this season. And then the last game we've got to speak about on today's video is QPR beating Hull by 3-2. Really entertaining game, this one, at Loftus Road, it has to be said. A typical Hull game this season as well, a really back and forth match. Hull themselves, I thought, took their goals quite well actually, but it's been at the opposite end of the pitch where they run into most of their problems this season, and after conceding 3 goals in this game, now means that only Sheffield Wednesday have conceded more goals this season than Hull have, and ultimately I think that could be their downfall if they're not going to finish in the top 6 this season, and if they may fall away from that in the second half of the season. But credit to QPR, because prior to the international break, goals have been in quite short supply for them. But if we look at the underlying stats for this one, I think it was a deserved 3 points ultimately. Hull had their chances going forward and looked a threat and could have got back into it with a very good chance late on. But you look at this here, 26 shots for QPR to 8 to Hull, 5 big chances, next year 3.62. With the players that QPR have available to them, like this whole attacking quartet here, give them the ball, let them play, they will create chances. Really good from Chair, who we've not seen a great deal of so far this season. But that's a big 3 points there for QPR, and I'm very interested to see how they line up against Blackburn in midweek, who have also picked up a bit of form recently. But there you have it, guys. That will wrap it up for today's video. There were my thoughts on this weekend's action. Obviously, still got a very big game to come today in the Steel City. We'll speak about that on tomorrow's video, where we'll be previewing all the games to come up in midweek in the Championship. But as always, make sure to get all your thoughts on the action in the comments down below. If you did go on to enjoy, please do leave a like, and I'll catch you all in the next one.